Hello, Internet! While I was making videos about Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, I came to really appreciate the Sevi Islands. I think they're a marvel as far as setting goes in the Pokemon series, and they really got me thinking that, man, there's a lot of areas I really like in this series. So this is a video about that. I just want to talk about places from throughout the series that I think are neat. If you're new around here, hi, I'm Winter. I make episodic Let's Plays about games I like, so this isn't really the sort of video I'm used to making. However, since I won't get to making a full series about another Pokemon game for a while, I at least want to take a moment to appreciate these locations in the meantime. I asked for viewer suggestions for areas to talk about as well, so those will also be included here. I have a lot of places to talk about, over 45 written down in fact, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be keeping it short, one per region, for the most part, except for the viewer suggested ones. If you'd like to see more though, please feel free to let me know. I have a lot more to talk about in a potential future video. From here on though, this video won't be scripted. Let's start where it all began in the Kanto region. Lavender Town was suggested to talk about by Later Gator to you, and honestly, yeah, this is like pretty much Kanto's one interesting place. Lavender Town genuinely just is the most notable place in Kanto. The creepy music is really juxtaposed by the fact that this is supposedly just a quiet town in Kanto's countryside normally. In fact, if we were to, like, go into our options menu in this game, just turn the background music down to 0. This is what this area sounds like to the people that live here. It's just like a little quiet town in the countryside. During our adventure, of course, it's a little more hectic due to Team Rocket's presence, but in the lore, the ghosts of the Pokemon Tower, which I'm entering now, usually aren't so restless. And this is considered to be a safe place to mourn your fallen Pokemon. Fallen Pokemon makes it sound like they all fell in battle, which isn't true. A lot of Pokemon here just died through natural causes, but supposedly, like, in a normal day in Lavender Town, any day that isn't during your adventure, this purple fog that just covers the area wouldn't be here. And it's a safe place to just sit over your Pokemon's grave and mourn their loss. In a way, the calmer music from Pokemon Gold and Silver's Lavender Town is much more fitting to the tone of the town from Generation 1. It's very harsh and grating in Generation 1, while Generation 2 feels a lot more mournful. This is sort of trampled on by the fact that Pokemon Tower was torn down and replaced with a radio tower, with the remains of the buried Pokemon being moved to buildings in the south of the town to be looked over by Mr. Fuji. Also, hello, Ghastly. Speaking of Mr. Fuji, of course he'd move here looking for peace after creating Mewtwo. The games never spell it out too explicitly, but almost every other piece of media Mewtwo is in speaks of the pain and betrayal it feels. Mr. Fuji has to live with the guilt of knowing he created that Pokemon who, in its own mind, probably seems to only exist to be in pain prior to your intervention. Unless it's the anime, he got to die in that. The Pokemon House in general is also just a nice place. I like being here. It's a place where, like, abandoned and hurt Pokemon get to stay with people who genuinely will take care of them. And Let's Go Pikachu is even sweet enough to include this artwork of, like, Red riding that Lapras, or of Cubone and Pikachu playing together. Along with this Master Trainer who has a Marowak, I guess. I don't know. I think the Pokemon House is definitely at its best in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where that artwork just adds a lot. You can see that this is like a place where kids probably come to volunteer to take care of Pokemon before they're able to become trainers themselves. I don't know. It's hard to really say a lot of places in Kanto strike the same tone that Lavender Town does, but Lavender Town is just so excellently done in a way that so much of the rest of the Kanto region just feels very samey. And I think it deserves a lot of credit for that. I also think it's funny that all the master trainers for Ghastly, Gengar, and Haunter are just hiding behind the buildings here. I find that very entertaining. Entertraining. Very good, me. Very good. I was between talking about the Sevalt Canyon and Memorial Pillar for the Sevi Islands. Sevalt Canyon is my favorite area in the series, but I think Memorial Pillar suits this video more. Memorial Pillar is a really solemn place sitting in the middle of nowhere on Five Island. Memorial Pillar is one of the few places outside of traditional graveyards in the Pokemon series where Pokemon death is ever mentioned. Being able to leave an offering at the grave during the main story is also a really sweet gesture. On top of that, finding a metal coat to the south of the pillar itself tells a story without explicitly telling you a story. This place is just pure world building, and I think it's really cool. Belchime Trail is the area I decided to speak of in the Johto region, though it has some steep competition in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This area was only given its own name and identity in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so that's saying something when I could not think of a single damn thing to say about it in Gold, Silver, and Crystal. For an area that only exists to lead the player out of Ecruteak City and into the Tin Tower, this place is beautiful. Like, my name might be Winter, but autumn is my favorite season, so this place just gets bonus points for that. That's literally the only thing about this place is it's beautiful. I especially think it's notable in the cutscene with Ho-Oh flying around it, but it's just such a neat place. Belchime Trail is neat. Route 113 is the most unique route in the Hoenn region. I know I just pronounced it two different ways in the same sentence, and the ash raining down from the nearby Mount Chimney, covering the tall grass and soot, is really, really cool. It's a rare instance of Pokemon doing something to remind you of the climate you're in that isn't just, oh, it's raining here, or, oh, it's snowing here. Soot doesn't affect your battles in any way, it's just there to make the area look cool. The music is also the best route theme in the series prior to Generation 5. Generation 6's version is even better in my opinion. Collecting the soot to have turned into glass flutes is a really neat idea, even if the flutes themselves aren't too useful and the mechanic is a little tedious. I'm a fan of it. I also like Spinda. Route 113 is neat. Pyrite Colosseum is definitely an odd one to bring up, but hear me out on this. This Colosseum is a dingy, naturally lit hole in the ground that looks incredibly cobbled together. Torn banners, rusty stands for spectators, metal lining the floors, the ceiling being unfinished, let in sunlight. The trainers you fight here tend to be a bit shadier in nature too, a reference to the fact that Pyrite Town is full of criminals. As a result of this, the vibe of this area fits perfectly. Not only that, but since this is the only required Colosseum challenge prior to Realgam Tower in Pokemon Colosseum, it does a great job of setting the tone for the Ore region as a whole. At this point, you're out of the clean, law-abiding Fennec City. The rest of the areas you visit in this game are Pyrite Town itself, the Under, a place basically run by Cypher, and the Shadow Pokemon Lab. Sure, there are brief required visits to a Gate Village and Mount Battle, but for the most part, you're running through areas controlled by the criminal underworld. I also just really like the music that plays in the stadium battles in this game. Pyrite Stadium is neat. I don't have written down in my notes to talk about this at all, but I just want to quickly mention this church in Hearthome City. Specifically in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I guess, because goddamn, those footprints are resounding. This place is creepy. But it's also a vibe unlike anything in the rest of the series. The lack of music, the things the people say, and there do I see my father, my son, my life, and there do I see nature, Pokemon, the world. The art of crafting things fatigues one's spirit. When the spirit is healed, the desire to make something returns. It is such a wondrous cycle. That's actually true. That's true as fuck, actually. Getting into the pews is a pain in the ass. That people are lonely is only natural. It gives me compassion for others. It's what makes me look forward to a better tomorrow. But there are still moments of fondness for the past. Time can heal some sadness, though. When people at Pokemon join hands, everyone's happy. It makes everyone come together. It could even make the world one. There are still words that not everyone can describe. The words are love and joy. Pokemon people, it's only natural that we are also very different. Make sure that you never judge a Pokemon based on whether it's weak or strong. You must always look for the good inside of them. That's what counts. True. Like, this area is just so weird. They didn't need to put this here, but they did, and it's full of genuinely good quotes. Especially this quote from this old man. He talks about burnout. That's such, like, a modern issue. I mean, obviously burnout has existed forever, but you know what I mean when I say modern issue. And this guy just has quotes for it in a game from 2008. And you can't say this is, no, this is a game from 2008, this is from 2020, because this is just the game from 2008. Come on. And then you walk outside and it's right back to the cheerful music like you didn't just have an experience. Mount Coronet's exterior. Pokemon has never nailed the feeling of climbing a snowy mountain like this since their first attempt. Even in Legends Arceus, the way the game is structured makes Mount Coronet itself feel like a cakewalk to climb. Relying on a Pokemon using Rock Climb really adds to the scale of the area. You might not consciously think about it, but every time you use Rock Climb, you're scaling up so much of the mountain. It seems small at a glance, but thinking about it, you realize just how high up you're going. The snow-covered exterior also gives you a good sense of how high up you're going. The music is awesome! It was definitely written to give you the vibe that you're climbing the mountain to save the world, which doesn't work so well in the post-game, but god, during the main story it works so well. It's a similar vibe to the Final Battle from Xenoblade Chronicles, a song that plays at Prison Island at the end of the game. I don't know. Mount Coronet is neat. The Spear Pillar was suggested by Lucia Harmonia, and yeah, this place is cool too. The fact that we know the Spear Pillar used to be the temple, well, used to be the Temple of Sinnoh in Legends Arceus prior to a rampage by Palkia or Dialga, really adds to the fact that it's a bunch of ancient ruins at the peak of a mountain. That's already cool. We know what happened here because we lived through it, and I think that's sick as fuck. This is also just a really cool place to have a final battle. This is also just a really cool place for God to open up a really tall glass staircase for you to climb and fight him. You know, normal Pokemon stuff. Spear Pillar's just neat. The Distortion World is also cool. Not much to say about it though. The way they play with the perspective, while a little confusing from a gameplay standpoint occasionally, is really cool visually and adds to the feeling of this being a twisted, wrong area. Climbing the upside-down waterfall is a set piece that always really stuck with me. And Giratina's battle theme rules so hard. The Distortion World is neat. Cafe Sonata. Immaculate vibes in this place. The cutscene here with the guitarist reminding Meloetta of the Relic song is one of my favorite moments in the series. the concept of this quiet, comfy little cafe hiding away in a place based on New York is a vibe I really, really appreciate. I also appreciate that the guitarist's words about Meloetta's song about sepia-tinted memories or something along those lines hints at how to get Meloetta to appear in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's DLC, even if that's a retroactive sort of thing. Laver City's gym was suggested by Lil Pun Rex, and what an insane suggestion that I would not have thought of, but true! Laver City's gym is based on a dollhouse while using basically the same puzzle as Sabrina's gym. There are like 4 unique trainer designs in here to mimic different dolls within a dollhouse, and yeah, for the first fairy-type gym, they really knocked it out of the park. Laver City's gym is neat. Pikachu Valley! Because of course this is the area I'd talk about in Alola. There are areas I like more, like Vast Pony Canyon, one of my favorite areas in the series, but this area is themed around Pikachu. I love Pikachu. Robin loves Pikachu too. You better love Pikachu too! If you don't love Pikachu, you'd better be prepared for the consequences. I am rapidly approaching your house. Get ready. Here I come. Pikachu Valley is neat. Maybe it's a bit of a cop-out area to talk about for Sword and Shield, but I really like the Glimwood Tangle. And I'm gonna show you the first reason why as soon as I find some tall grass. You're not what I'm here for either, but you're one of my favorite Pokemon, so, you know. Hell yeah. Do I have any Quick Balls? I don't. Damn. Well, another day. Well, I guess while I'm looking for the Pokemon that I'm looking for, I'll go over my other, like, reasons for thinking this is, like, one of the best areas in Sword and Shield and, like, Galar and the Pokemon world as a whole. First of all, the lighting being almost entirely from the mushrooms that are around the area is a really cool idea, especially for a place that's very clearly meant to be, like, sort of based on fairy tales, and the Pokemon that appear here are almost entirely fairy types as a result. I've personally never really minded the linearity of areas in the Galar region. And I really appreciate that they went for making so many of them have this, like, sort of striking visual appeal in a way that Pokemon really hasn't done with routes since Unova. There were, like, obviously occasions here and there in X and Y, and I think Sun and Moon also have a lot of good routes, but... There we go! Transrite's horse! That appears here! Hell yeah! I adore Galarian Ponyta. It's one of the best things ever designed for Pokemon, just in general. Will you get in the first Ultra Ball? This isn't Legends Arceus, so I'm hoping you'll be nicer to me. Transrites, baby. I think Galar is the prettiest a region in the Pokemon series has ever looked. It's just, like... Every aspect of so much of Galar is so nice to look at. And, like, you hear people complain about things like the textures on the trees in the wild area. And yeah, that could have used some more time in the oven, but unfortunately they didn't have that time to give it in the oven. I think when the Galar region tries to be pretty, it's so successful. Look at that! You touch the mushrooms and you get attacked by Impidimp. It's awesome! Glimwood Tangle is the first area in the series that's really made specifically for fairy-type Pokemon, and they really, really nailed the vibe on the first try. And I just think that's really neat. There's a bunch of people lost in here. Granted, it's also one of the only areas where, like, overworld Pokemon do not exist, just because of how much is going on here, probably. And I'm not trying to say, like, oh, Game Freak can do no wrong, because obviously there are aspects of this game that could be better. But the visuals are not a negative of Sword and Shield. The visuals are a positive. So much of this game is beautiful, and I'm just sick of the fucking wild area being the thing that's used to, like, say this game looks bad. Because I just can't agree. Even outside of Glimwood Tangle, there are a lot of places in Galar that I had written to write about, and that I would love to talk about if I ever make a sequel video. Like, rest assured, I have a lot more to talk about in this region. Glimwood Tangle is neat, though. There's not a lot of areas in Paldea or Kitakami that I'd consider particularly memorable, but the Blueberry Academy does something really cool by contextualizing an area from a previous game. Altaria, stay away from me. Not right now. This is the Nature Preserve from Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, a post-game exclusive area in this game. Right now, where I'm standing is about where the plane lands in Black 2 and White 2. In Black 2 and White 2, to contextualize this, there's a place called the Nature Preserve where you can go after completing the Pokedex. It's a small area where you can encounter a shiny Haxorus. It's never stated where exactly it is, it's just off the coast of Unova somewhere, judging by the fact you need a plane to get there. But, you never really hear much more about it. Blueberry Academy contextualizes it by placing it inside the Blueberry Academy's terrarium. That's not what I expected to see. Well, the Pokemon that appears here changes depending on the time of day, I believe, but there's a Haxorus with the Stellar type that appears here either during the day or at night at some point. And you can probably even encounter a shiny variant yourself if you want to.
Oh no.
Hello. Yeah, run right at me, sure. Let's do this. Blueberry Academy is already a massive love letter to just the Unova region in general, but I really appreciate them putting the Nature Preserve in here. It could just be that the Nature Preserve is much bigger than what's shown in Black 2 and White 2 and was already a part of the terrarium. But it could also just be that the Nature Preserve was the starting point of a much larger project that eventually became Blueberry Academy's terrarium. Either way, it's really cool that it's here, and it's cool to be able to explore the place in 3D. Watch this. This is one of the rare opportunities on this channel where I'm going to actually get to use Minior, who I think may genuinely be my favorite Pokemon. Minior is so cool, so I'm gonna leave this battle in, even if it makes the video worse as a result of doing so. Minior gets access to Shell Smash, which makes it incredibly fun to use because you can just have its defenses, basically. Use a White Herb to get those defenses right back, and then as soon as it actually gets below half health, it just becomes a fucking unbeatable monster, on top of having the speed attack and special attack boosts already from using Shell Smash. It's such a fun time. And getting acrobatics on top after using the White Herb up. Look at that. It's so cool. It's so fun. This is the best Pokemon ever, and it's so disappointing that they cut it after Sun and Moon for so long. I'm glad it's back. Nice critical capture. I do have more areas in Paldea itself that I want to talk about, but I think it's best to call it here for this video. The Nature Preserve being in Blueberry Academy is really neat, though. That's all for this video. I just wanted to show some appreciation for the world of Pokemon before saying goodbye to the series on this channel for a little bit. Legends EA is coming out soon. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to find new areas within Lumio City that make me feel similarly to the areas seen in the rest of this video. Alright. See you all later. Bye.